trying to figure out what do the Titans need to do for these final two games at running back. You've got Derrick Henry, the legend, who could very well be playing his last two games in a Titans uniform, and his contract is up. That's what that's based on. He's at 972 yards. He is averaging 3.9 yards per attempt. You have Tyjae Spears, who is averaging 4.7 yards per attempt. So almost a full yard more. Derrick Henry has 249 carries, which is actually not even a monumental amount for him. Now, he could easily get to 300 with a couple of big games this year, but he could also maybe not get to 300 depending on how the Titans' rushing attack looks in these final two games. Tyjae Spears has 91 carries. We'll get into our thoughts, but let's start with Jordan in Nashville, 615-737-1045, who wants to weigh in on this subject. Jordan, what would you do? You're Mike Vrabel, got a legend in the backfield, but you got a young guy that you drafted and have great hopes and expectations for. How do you balance things out for these final two games of the season?
Well, I think it works because Derrick is like who he is. But I think like moving forward, I think we kind of saw it like in Dallas, how we had Ezekiel Elliott last year and Tony Pollard. And Tony Pollard kind of came out as a star, then he kind of moved away from Zeke. But then you don't really get that production there. And I think that's one of those situations where you still need a guy like Henry for Spears to kind of keep doing what he's doing, because it kind of keeps that illusion there of like what you're going to do. But I mean, that's just my input. Just let me know what you guys think.
So the conundrum for me seems to be there are two different rushing styles. Mm-hmm. Derrick Henry is not the kind of guy, in my opinion, that receives the handoff and can get to the edge. Mm-hmm. Toss sweeps, screens, that'll get him to the sideline and maybe take advantage of it that way. Derrick Henry is a sledgehammer. He's coming right down between the tackles, and if he gets to that third step, it's over. He does have the gear to switch, because even 18-wheelers can get to 100 miles an hour, right? Tyjae's not that guy. More of a scat back style. I don't know how you feel about him downs 1 through 3 consistently to be able to take over a backfield, much like Tony Pollard has an issue being the bell cow, so to speak, for Dak Prescott's offense.
Right.
But it doesn't seem to me that the Titans have the kind of offensive line to push the line of scrimmage back to allow that third step for Derrick Henry consistently. Every now and then we'll see flashes of it. But Derrick Henry's the kind of guy that needs 20, 25, 26, 27 carries to then start getting momentum to be able to take over a ball game. Because after a while, even a slow drip will end up making some sort of impression. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And after a while, you will see the dam break. But getting to that level of consistency where Derrick Henry can get that many carries and then ultimately allow the defense to just give up because they're tired of getting leaned on all the time. This front five, front six, even receivers blocking on the edge, to me, doesn't allow Derrick the kind of productivity because they're not winning the line of scrimmage consistently. They do it every now and then, but not every single play week in and week out. That's just the way I see it.
We have a TV in the studio. It's behind Brad, so Brad would have to have eyes in the back of his head to see it. But the way Blaine and I sit, we just kind of sit here, and while we talk, we may tilt our microphones. We kind of keep an eye on the TV. So the Senior Bowl practices last year were on during our show. And I kept telling him, man, this guy, Tyjae Spears from Tulane, he is so much fun to watch. Well, here he is every day. And he's got that thing where he's here, no, he's here, no, he's here, no, he's here. He's probably not, if you said you and Derrick are going to race each other for 100 yards, over 100 yards, Derrick, I would imagine Derrick would win that race. But for 8 yards or 3 yards or 5 yards, it's a different world that they're living in. They're just different people physically. Tyjae Spears, I've used the word sudden. He's sudden. Like, he has the ball, and he's sudden to get out of the way of the 2 or 3 guys who are at his feet, which has happened a lot. They spent so much draft capital on him, a third-round pick. A couple years ago, it was Darrington Evans they spent draft capital on. A couple of years, or the year after that, it was Hassan Haskins. They drafted the other guys while Derrick Henry was unobjectively in his prime. More than anything, I wish they'd spent those on maybe another offensive lineman or a receiver or a cornerback. They spent a lot of draft capital on other running backs. But here we are with Tyjae Spears. And the thing about Spears, and because of our showtime, I don't necessarily get to go to practice midweek, but I get to go to all the training camp practices. And man, we'd ask about Tyjae Spears. Oh, we're going to find all these ways to use him. He can catch the ball. He can run routes. We'll send him out wide. It kind of felt like it feels like almost an incomplete for how he's been used this year. I honestly thought we'd see a lot more of him. And they don't really have a receiver like him. Kyle Phillips is a little more sudden than the other big-bodied receivers they have, but he's dealt with hamstring issues. Heck, he was a healthy scratch for one game. But I honestly thought, okay, maybe they're both in the backfield. Tyjae Spears goes out of the backfield because the caller had a great point. Boy, as long as Henry's out there, everybody's got to account for where he is. And maybe not with Spears. I totally get that, where it's like you can watch a Titans game with people who don't know football, and they'll go, boy, everybody hits 22 on every play. He gets all the attention. I was watching a game with a relative one time and who didn't know football, and she kept saying, they all hit 22 on every play. He must be really good. I said, well, he gets all the attention. So he may get more attention, but I thought, gosh, if you had some attention on Derrick, motion Tyjae out, the guy who has to guard him is going to have a hard time keeping up with him, at least in a short space. We just haven't seen much of that. But with 2 games left, I'd like to see Derrick get 1,000 yards, and I'd like to see him get every accolade and every last clap that he can from these fans because he's earned it. But, man, Tyjae Spears is probably your guy going forward. I mean, you spend a lot of capital on running. Darrington Evans isn't even in the league anymore, I don't think. Hassan Haskins got in some trouble, and he's been inactive all year, and then he went on injured reserve. I mean, he may not even be on the team next year. But for what Tyjae Spears can give you, I sure wouldn't mind seeing him get at least tilted his way for the last 2 games.
I know we're up against it, but the deficiencies up front, and I'm just pointing this at the offensive line, but Tyjae makes that first guy miss because there is going to be somebody in the backfield where Derrick Henry doesn't necessarily. But if you don't think Derrick Henry still commands that presence, look at the touchdown pass that he threw to Chig. That's because the defense got sucked up.
Oh, sure.
With Derrick Henry having the ball in his hand and it left Chig wide open in the end zone. That's the kind of attention that 22 still brings.
Boy.
On the other side, maybe we talk more about shades of Eddie George and Chris Brown.
Well, let's do that because Brad Hopkins would certainly remember how that went down when another Titans legendary running back started to cede carries to an up-and-coming guy, and Chris Brown will